And I'm Marley May. While Marvin tracks the action, I'll be watching the pit walls, the tyre wear curves and the weather data. If something is about to change in this race, we will see it coming. Marley May on analysis, tyre strategy, stint management, pit windows. Hey, all of that is my department today. If you want to know why something just happened, I am your person.
The green is out. Cold tyres, warm intentions, and a long way to the flag.
Right, and the car behind that just lost the position and is now in a more complicated situation. Having been past changes everything about how you respond.
The driver goes to the front. That changes the shape of this one. Mattia slots into the lead. The race revolves around them now. How much of that move came from tyre advantage?
Right, and that is the undercut doing its work. The pit wall bought the opportunity and the driver cashed it in cleanly. It gives a psychological lift, but also changes the risk calculus. They now have track position to defend. The mental mode, it shifts from hunter to defender, and that changes which laps you are willing to sacrifice.
Matteo moves up to position. P11. Oh, that was measured work.
Yeah, and that is a position gained without abusing the tyre. Clean, measured, and exactly what the engineer wants to see. Honestly, the chasing team is calculating tyre delta against clean air. If they can create either, the gap becomes vulnerable.
Patient work rewarded. The driver now occupies position. P12. Mattia takes the lead. The Ferrari has the front of this race. The surface is right in the window where confidence builds quickly, then gets tested on exit.
Right, and it is the trend that matters, not the snapshot. A gap that is closing is a completely different problem from one that is holding. Right, and the overtake is the visible part. The invisible part was the lap before the stop, the in-lap and the out-lap, all lining up. And confidence matters here. A clean pass tells the driver the car will be there when they ask for the limits. Yeah, and that is exactly why we kept coming back to that fight. The move was already being built before it finally appeared on screen.
Is the gap at the front where you would expect it to be at this stage? Does that move alter the next pit call?
And the past car can respond, but the next lap is difficult. Dirty air, hot tyres and frustration are a bad combination. If that sector time holds up, we are watching a driver who has found the circuit in a way nobody else has managed today. What is the on-track picture?
Is this a move that changes the strategy picture or purely a racing gain?
And the defender had options, but none of them were good. Older tyres shrink the menu very quickly in a braking zone.
Race pace doing the talking. Luca moves into position. P18. The work pays off. Marcelo claims position, P6.
Yeah, and once the run out of the previous corner improved, that move became almost inevitable. The braking zone only confirmed it. Yeah, and gaps breathe over a stint. They open on clean laps, closing traffic, and tell you who is really in control. You know, the driver will feel that before the stopwatch confirms it. The car rotates cleanly, exits stop costing time, and every braking point feels available.
Sylvain keeps the car pointed the right way from position P2, so not everything needs to be loud. No comfort up front. The margin that kept Marcelo safe is eroding. Francesco smells blood. An opportunistic gain for Francesco. A now running position, P5.
Yeah, and the timing screen had been hinting at that move for a while. The track finally gave them the braking zone to finish it.
Mattia is first on the road. Sylvain is the nearest answer.
Right, and that sector is not only speed, it is confidence. The car has to feel predictable before a driver commits like that. And the pit wall may decide the cleanest pass is not on track at all. If the defence is too expensive, the undercut becomes the smarter weapon.
The undercut gives Matteo on position, Pisa on the road.
Yeah, and once the run out of the previous corner improved, that move became almost inevitable. The braking zone only confirmed it.
Long braking zones can soften as the stint builds.
Right, and the marshal posts around that area just went from quiet to very busy. How the car is moved and how quickly will tell us the scale of the problem.
Matteo has stretched it slightly, but Marcus is not gone.
Right, and rhythm and strategy are linked. A driver finds rhythm more easily when the car is in clean air and the tyre target is realistic. And the important thing is not the size of the gap, it is who is spending tyre life to make it stay that size.
Where is the next real passing chance in this fight?
In a field with this level of pace compression, being 2+ seconds off the median for consecutive laps makes the strategy conversation extremely difficult to win. And that number on the screen is already slightly out of date. Track position is always in motion out there. The answer is in how late the braking point is. If the defending car is braking earlier than normal into the key hairpin, the pace is being managed, not driven. That is unsustainable. The fade is showing in the exits. Once traction starts disappearing, the driver has to wait longer, and the lap time goes with it.
That was about tyre advantage. Matteo takes position, P5.
And the patience to wait for it is the story. That did not happen in one lap. It happened over many.
Race pace doing the talking. The driver moves into position, P2.
Right, and you could read it in the sector times. Every run out of the final corner was a rehearsal for this.
The driver loses touch with Sylvain. For the moment, the gap opens. In traffic, Andrea finds a way. Position, P28 is theirs. Does the leader watch the gap or the target lap? The driver capitalizes and takes the biggest prize on the board, the race lead. Lead change. Mattia takes control of the race.
Positions gained through raw pace rather than strategy cycles are the hardest to achieve. Every place taken today has been earned, not given.
Can a pit window make this gap misleading? What does the defending driver's engineer say to them at a moment like this?
Yeah, and the driver behind must resist impatience. The best move is often the one you do not make until the defender has already compromised the exit.
Thomas gets the job done and takes over position, P20. There is a groove forming for the driver and consistent exits, and the times are dropping. Track position secured. Matteo consolidates in position, P4.
Right, and that is the reward for keeping the car clean when conditions made it easy to overstep. Disciplined driving earns clean overtakes. Sometimes the story in a race is the drivers who did not make news. Clean air, consistent lap times, no incidents. That is a team that came here prepared and is executing it. Yeah, and you can hear the strategy conversation in that gap. Hold the window, break the toe, or force an undercut response.
What does that arc say about the team's race plan? Carlo takes advantage and climbs to position. P15. Christian moves up to position. P7. Oh, that was measured work.
Right, and that pass was set up 3 laps ago. You could see the gap drifting corner by corner.
The front gap is coming down.
Sometimes the story in a race is the drivers who did not make news. Clean air, consistent lap times, no incidents. That is a team that came here prepared and is executing it.
Fuel, tyres and track position. Oh, the 3 things every team is weighing through every lap of this stint.
And the chaser is gathering information right now. They are learning braking points, throttle application, and where the defending car cannot rotate cleanly. If that sector time holds up, we are watching a driver who has found the circuit in a way nobody else has managed today. What is the on-track picture? And a gap of that size is right in the window where strategy becomes a conversation. Hold it and defend, or extend it and control.
The pressure lifts momentarily. The driver has a few car lengths of cushion. How do you judge the quality of a pass like that?
You know, the overtake really started when the chaser forced the defender to compromise the previous exit. The rest was execution.
Let's bring you in, Marley. The chaser is close enough to read the dashboard in front. Luca picks one off and moves into position. P18. The immediate pressure fades for the driver, and a stronger lap builds a bigger margin.
Yeah, and the leader knows that number as well as we do. When the gap drops to a certain point, the whole way you drive changes. A fading stint also changes the battles around it. Rivals sense the weakness before the timing screen fully confirms it.
Sylvain has halved the gap. The move is coming soon.
The best quiet drives build results without demanding attention. They let other cars create the noise while the lap times stay useful. Yeah, and a leader can back off only if the tyre and traffic picture allows it. Lift too much and you invite the race back to you.
A safety car would change everything right now. Every engineer has that scenario mapped out.
Yeah, and the decisive factor is usually not the corner where the pass happens. It is the two corners before it where the chaser forces the defender off the natural rhythm. What is the on-track explanation for that sector? That kind of lap time in race trim is not a fluke. There is a very specific setup and tyre temperature window that produces a personal best in traffic, and this team has found it.
Mattia has the lead, with the driver keeping the front of the field honest. Opportunistic from Christopher. On position, P19 snapped up.
That is the finish line on the fight we were watching. The braking zone was always going to be the moment.
Corner exits pay twice. Lap time now and defence later. That gap has barely changed in the last 2 laps.
And the key metric is the gap on exit. If it shrinks one more time, the move is alive.
Someone appears to have lost it in the pack. Striking distance now. The driver is on the bumper of the driver. How does the leader manage the psychological weight of that gap number? The driver breaks the toe and pulls a small gap. The driver has to regroup.
I'd flag this. Marvin Mackay. Honestly, the pressure is already working. If the lead car is braking early, the pass may be seconds away, but the race has been changing for a while. Right, and it is the trend that matters, not the snapshot. A gap that is closing is a completely different problem from one that is holding.
This is getting urgent for the driver. Marcelo has closed it right down. Is there a moment in a stint where you can tell a driver has genuinely found their rhythm?
The experienced ones stop looking at the gap number entirely. They manage to target lap time and trust the gap to look after itself. The ones who watch the gap tend to react to it emotionally, which costs them pace.
You can feel the pressure building with every corner here.
Almost certainly managing tyre wear. A leader with a comfortable margin is almost never driving at absolute pace. They are driving at the minimum pace required to hold the gap while maximising tyre life for the endgame.
Progress continues for Simone on position P26 on the board.
Yeah, and the defending car had no clean answer there. When the traction delta opens that wide, the move becomes inevitable.
A new leader on track. The driver assumes the responsibility.
Yeah, and now the race changes for both cars. One gets cleaner air and a target ahead. The other has to rebuild rhythm after losing position.
They were alone in that section for the full out and back. No traffic, No overtaking concerns, just the circuit and the clock. The conditions were right for that lap to happen. Is the leader protecting the gap or protecting the tyres? The circuit is quiet between events. The race breathes before the next chapter. Front two locked together.
It tells you the setup was right and the strategy had headroom. A drive that improves through a race rather than just holding position means this team did their homework before lights out and are executing it precisely.
The battle is not always visible. Sometimes it is fought in tenths against the clock.
Right, and secure means surviving a mistake, a traffic pocket, and one rival on better tyre age. Few gaps are truly that large.
Corner exits pay twice. Lap time now and defence later. The lead car is using every inch of the road to hold this.
Right, and that usually means the tyres are starting to talk. Defence gets expensive from here.
The driver is the race leader. Mattia remains the car to watch behind. Mattia seizes control. The lead changes hands on track.
The best quiet drives build results without demanding attention. They let other cars create the noise while the lap times stay useful. Yeah, and the pressure in a gap is not evenly distributed. The car behind is usually more in control of that number than the car in front. It gives a psychological lift, but also changes the risk calculus. They now have track position to defend. The mental mode, it shifts from hunter to defender, and that changes which laps you are willing to sacrifice. Yeah, and traffic can decide this very quickly. A slower car at the wrong apex removes the defender's preferred option and opens the move.
Marley, put this in context. What is the danger when a recovery starts to stall?
And watch whether this propagates into the full lap. A purple sector that does not translate into a fast lap tells you something got spent somewhere else. In an endurance context, more car than you might think. The driver found the opportunity, but the car created it. The mechanical grip advantage at the braking point, the traction on exit, those are set-up decisions from the engineers. What the timing sheet shows and what the driver is experiencing are two different things. The sector data behind this performance deserves a closer look. You know, battles like this are won with repeatable pressure, more than one heroic lunge. The driver behind wants the same gap 3 laps in a row. And the warning sign is repeatable sector loss. 1 slow lap is traffic. 3 matching losses in the same sector is pace trouble. It gives a psychological lift, but also changes the risk calculus. They now have track position to defend. The mental mode, it shifts from hunter to defender, and that changes which laps you are willing to sacrifice.
What does the pit wall learn from that benchmark?
Right, and that is what a sustained battle does. It moves the defender off their preferred rhythm 1 corner at a time.
Possible spin somewhere on track. One driver may need to gather it up.
Yeah, these incidents tend to bunch things up through the field. Somebody in that traffic just found themselves in a much better position with no effort.
What was the key to making that move stick? New man on the chase. What does consistent pace like that mean for the rest of this race strategically?
It tells you the setup was right and the strategy had headroom. A drive that improves through a race rather than just holding position means this team did their homework before lights out and are executing it precisely. The gap number is the headline, but the trend line underneath it is the real story. If it has been moving in one direction for 4 laps, it will keep moving until something changes.
There's a real shape to that drive now. Thomas has halved the gap. The move is coming soon. When you see a car start fading through the field, what is the real story behind the position loss?
Specific to this corner, the entry geometry on this circuit gives a big traction advantage to a car that can take a slightly wider entry line. The overtaking car has been using that line for 3 laps. Today was just the one where the gap inside matched the ambition.
Again in the running order, the driver advances to position P20.
Right, and it is worth noting how little time that cost. Efficient overtakes preserved the stint, and that one did exactly that. The car is accepting more load than it did earlier, which means the balance has moved towards the driver rather than away from them. The final sector here has a long straight and a tight hairpin on the end. That hairpin pin is exactly the geometry that benefits the car with fresher tyres. The leader knows that. Running this far off the field median can mean compound choice, balance compromise, tyre pressure, or a driver managing to a specific conservative target. The engineer will know which story this is.
Does the leader watch the gap or the target lap? How long can a driver hold that kind of pressure before it costs them?
It depends entirely on tyre age. A 3-second advantage on fresh rubber is not the same as 3 seconds on a 20-lap old tyre. The clock is running on more than just the gap.
We are deep into this race now, and the survivors will be rewarded.
Almost certainly managing tyre wear. A leader with a comfortable margin is almost never driving at absolute pace. They are driving at the minimum pace required to hold the gap while maximising tyre life for the end game. Yeah, and this is the kind of pressure that makes a driver shorten the corner. Once that happens, the tyres start paying the bill. The tyre has stopped giving the driver choices. When the compound dictates the breaking point, the strategy has to respond.
Fuel strategy windows are converging across the field. The next 10 minutes will be busy.
Honestly, if the gap is stable but the defender is changing lines, the chaser is already influencing the race. Control has started to move. And the quality of the drive is in the details. Clean exits, calm inputs, and no drama. That's how ARCs build.
That extra bit of pace from Thomas opens a small buffer. How much of this is driver rhythm versus strategy? The timing confirms it. Kevin has taken position, P17.
Right, and the reserve should be just enough to answer pressure without overheating the compound. That is a narrow operating band. A real recovery drive is methodical. The timing screen only shows the positions gained, not the discipline needed to earn them.
Looks like someone has gone around out there.
Right, and incidents have a strategic shadow. Even if the car continues, the stint plan may have changed completely. What makes a breakthrough like that remarkable is the timing. Late in the stint, the fastest time arriving on top of the position gain. So the confidence level in that car right now must be enormous.
The front gap is coming down.
Mid-race improvement is exceptional. The compound has not just held on, it has actually got better. That is outstanding management from driver and team together.
The gaps in this field tell the story of 100 small decisions. Does the leader watch the gap or the target lap?
It depends entirely on tyre life. The compound is either still within its designed window or the driver has been managing it extraordinarily well. Either way, something is working at a high level.
A safety car would change everything right now. Every engineer has that scenario mapped out.
And a comfortable lead becomes a trap when it encourages conservative laps on a tyre that actually needs temperature. Too safe can become slow.
Every lap, the drivers are banking information. Brake points, tyre feel, the traffic picture.
Right, and you could read it in the sector times. Every run out of the final corner was a rehearsal for this. Right, and the thing about gaps is you are not just looking at the number, you are looking at whether it is moving. A moving gap is a story.
The lead is Mattia S. Does that move alter the next pit call? What tells you the chaser is ready to commit? When does a comfortable lead become a trap?
There is enough movement in the pace profile to make this worth following. Strategy decisions often start with exactly this kind of pattern.
Matteo has been chipping away at this race. 11 spots gained. P2 on the board.
And the warning sign is repeatable sector loss. One slow lap is traffic. 3 matching losses in the same sector is pace trouble.
The driver has halved the gap. The move is coming soon.
What I want to see now is whether the recovery continues. The pace says there is more available and the tyre data will tell us how much runway remains.
A place gained for the driver. On position P5. Now.
Right, and that pass was set up 3 laps ago. You could see the gap drifting corner by corner. When lap time variance stays low, the pit wall can be aggressive with strategy because the risk is understood. Honestly, the chasing team is calculating tyre delta against clean air. If they can create either, the gap becomes vulnerable. A fading stint also changes the battles around it. Rivals sense the weakness before the timing screen fully confirms it.
The car has gone around. Breathe, straighten it, and recover. Can a pit window make this gap misleading? The battle pauses. Sylvain has a cushion, but it is not over.
There is something impressive about holding the same tenth of a second window lap after lap. It requires more skill than most people realise, and it is the discipline that converts pace into results. Right, and secure means surviving a mistake, a traffic pocket, and one rival on better tyre age. Few gaps are truly that large.
Is patience still the right play for the car behind? How do you know a pace trend is real?
Yes, and you can see it in the lap time variance. Before rhythm, times vary by more than a second. After rhythm, the variance drops to 2 or 3 tenths. The driver is no longer searching, but they have arrived.
The threat recedes for the driver, all but Matteo is not done yet.
And a comfortable lead becomes a trap when it encourages conservative laps on a tyre that actually needs temperature. Too safe can become slow. That is the Reed Marvin Mackay. Right, and that gap is just large enough to feel safe and just small enough to be dangerous. That is where races turn.
Sylvain continues to hold off the driver. How long can this last?
That pace step says the driver is solving the car as the stint evolves. Not every setup gets better with distance. This one is coming alive.
The driver moves up to position, P5. Oh, that was measured work.
And there is the payoff for all that patient work. The chaser kept asking the question until the defender ran out of clean answers.
The pressure is arriving now for P5. The driver has closed right onto Sylvain.
When lap time variance stays low, the pit wall can be aggressive with strategy because the risk is understood. A recovery drive of that magnitude does not happen in isolation. Strategy, tyre management and genuine pace all have to be working simultaneously. All three have been here today.
Is patience still the right play for the car behind? The field holds a steady rhythm here at this circuit. That gap is coming down sector by sector. The driver has pulled closer. Is the leader protecting the gap or protecting the tyres? How does a recovery drive of that nature actually happen in modern endurance racing?
Yeah, and you could feel that coming. The setup was already done. This was just the delivery.
Sylvain moves the race forward one spot, P5.
And that is a classic endurance pass. Not a lunge, not desperation, just lap by lap pressure turned into track position. And there is the payoff for all that patient work. The chaser kept asking the question until the defender ran out of clean answers.